I only saw one trailer for the menu, and I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. But if you're looking for a dark and biting comedy, this one may satisfy your palate. Yeah, I know, the food puns. I mean, I have so many more to serve you, but I don't want to stuff the intro and have you full before it even begins. Please don't unsubscribe. A young couple travels to a remote island to eat at an exclusive restaurant where the chef has prepared a lavish menu, with some shocking surprises. This stars Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Nicholas Hoult, where eccentric and wealthy people go to this restaurant to have a meal from a world-renowned chef. Now, once there, the night, it's not exactly what they expected it to be. So this is a very dark comedy, but one that I laughed out loud at many times throughout the film. I mean, Ralph Fiennes plays the chef, and he commands the screen, just as he commands the kitchen. He has a presence that feels at times a bit like Voldemort, where his acolytes just fawn over him and then feign their submission, mimicking his movements and beliefs. Now, I loved watching him on screen because he's mysterious, pompous, and then he's quirky, but also in very brief moments, he's an everyman. There are glimpses of normalcy that we can see amidst the arrogance and haughty air that he puts off. Anya Taylor-Joy is outstanding, as she is cynical and no nonsense, but she's also mysterious, or at least guarded, but we get more and more insight into her as the story progresses. Now, I loved her dynamic with both Fiennes and Hoult, where the interactions come across differently, but they share so many similarities. And there are a ton of times within this that she's conveying so much with just her eyes, and I was sucked in. I mean, it also helps that the story is very engaging, and it kept getting more dark and cynical as it went along, which then was also drawing me in. Nicholas Hoult is enjoyable, but his persona and arc, they're fairly predictable and even static. Now, I love that he's an obsessed foodie who's also wildly pretentious about the culinary arts, and yet it's all show. He's a character we're not supposed to like, and through each minute, that disdain grows. Now, there's a large cast of supporting characters in this, from the patrons to the kitchen staff, and some of them add good things to the story, while many of them just kind of sink into the background. Now, most of the patrons are stereotypes, highlighted for just their particular character flaw within the story. And while this is a bit of an obvious way to create characters, they do work for the greater commentary that's contained here. There's a very artsy and pretentious feeling to the presentation of the movie, but it works with the backdrop of this exclusive island restaurant that only allows a handful of diners to attend. Now, as each course changes, we're shown title cards to let us know where in the menu we are, and at times we'll get to see the ingredients in a particular dish. And they're often hilarious because of what's included in the verbiage. They're snarky, but in a dryly comedic way. I was really drawn to the overarching message and theme within the story. When the film begins to unveil what's really going on at the restaurant and then what's in store for the guests, this takes on a more biting social commentary. Now, some of it was certainly present and even obvious just from the characters we meet, but as the story reveals itself, that's when the pointedness really does come out. And through all of this, there are very funny lines of dialogue that are extremely subtle and then delivered in a straightforward manner, but they're hilarious. The set design and aesthetics of the production, I think, are awesome. I mean, everything is carefully placed, just like it is in each food dish. The presentation is sparse and it's sort of cold or maybe even impersonal, but then there are very personal and intimate elements that are incorporated, creating a narrative that is captivating and harsh. Now, I think some of the story arc is predictable, but that didn't take away from the building tension of what's going on. I mean, if anything, it may have increased the stress and anxiety because we can see where everything is headed. I mean, even the pretentious atmosphere that's present throughout, it stays with the film until the end, and then it works amazingly for the finale. And then there's the cinematography. I mean, it crafts so many of the shots to present the story to us, as if a chef is presenting their dish. I mean, the visuals are wonderful, and even when they're obvious. Now, the pacing for this is also done really well. There are beats to how everything plays out, ramping up the excitement, and then giving some moments of calm before returning to something that's harrowing or gnarly. This is a relatively short movie at just an hour and 46 minutes. The time flew by without it feeling rushed, but it also didn't outstay its welcome or even feel like it was dragging. I mean, even with the repetition of certain movements, this still kept a freshness and a driving intensity. I like that while each course of the meal could be performed in much of the same way, there are so many unexpected things that are introduced, creating an ominous tone that brings about dread for what's to come. Now, I said that this was hilarious, and it is, but not every single one of the jokes or attempts at humor landed for me. There's one group of patrons that I was just not a fan of. I mean, we're not supposed to like them, so they accomplish that part well, but they have moments where they're supposed to come across as witty or maybe funny, and they were just cringy to me. I did enjoy the small commentary on the alpha male persona, but the attempts at humor with these characters, they just didn't click for me. So, despite the predictable arcs and even the stereotypical characters, the biting humor and performances from Fiennes and Taylor-Joy are really what make this so much fun to watch. The humor is very dark and the cynicism just drips at times, but it still left me with a huge smile on my face at what was being said in regards to class, success, privilege, and even desire. I mean, I'll certainly watch this again, and I fully expect to laugh at the offbeat comedy just as much as I did on the first watch. Overall, The Menu is a harsh commentary that might be too on the nose at times, but the characters created by Fiennes and Taylor-Joy are riveting and a joy to watch. The pretentiousness of the setting and the presentation fit perfectly with the aesthetics of the narrative, creating an air of superiority and pompousness that recognizes its own flaws and is filled with self-disdain. Not every single joke lands, but the humor is funny and subtle. This might get a mixed reaction from audiences, but if your palate is looking for something new and different, you may want to check out The Menu. There's no sex or nudity, a ton of profanity, and then a bunch of brutal violence. I give The Menu 4 out of 5 couches. So what's your favorite genre of food? Now, that's a tough one for me as I love most things other than vegetables, but let me know what you like to munch on in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.